Hi, I'm Stephen Price.
Hello, I'm Cara Githens.
This is the Innkeepers, a podcast by Sanctuary Inn. At Sanctuary Inn, we believe we are called to equip, refresh, and restore God's global workers.
On this podcast, we will be interviewing guests who have much to teach us about the many facets of missionary care. Let's learn together and be encouraged to press on in the work God has given each one of us to do.
Well, Cara, can you believe that here we are about to launch Season 8 of the Innkeepers podcast?
So exciting. It's just been a great journey thus far, and we're looking forward to having people join us on this next season.
Yeah, I'm always grateful for the guests who give their time to record with us. And this year, as we look into the coming 8 episodes for this year, we have a great conversation with Denise Beck talking about the ministry of Velvet Ashes and how it serves women working cross-culturally.
Yeah, and we have some talking about facing danger and learning about how to navigate the whole aspect of how to choose to make wise decisions about the risks that missionary families take.
Yeah, the topic of missionary coaching comes up this season.
Yeah, we have child safety, leadership care, just a great lineup. And I hope that you guys join us for all of it. Yeah. And be sure that you're subscribed so you get that little notification when we launch each episode.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to know who's listening and from where. And so we're always excited when we can see that there's people literally around the world listening to the Innkeepers podcast, and that's really satisfying to us.
Thanks for joining us.
Today on the Innkeepers, we're interviewing Bret Taylor and Sheryl O'Bryan. Bret is the president of International and the creator of the Adaptable TCK Model. Bret has spent over 25 years serving third culture kids, starting as a chaplain for MKs in Kenya and later leading the youth and family ministry at JAARS. He chairs MK Caregiver Summit and helps lead the International TCK Conference. Bret lives in North Carolina with his wife, Mindy. Bret's visited 33 countries, and he swears by In-N-Out burgers.
That's great. So Sheryl O'Bryan grew up in New York State and has always wanted to be a TCK. Her parents were uncooperative in this venture, as she says. She later on graduated from Wheaton College and then went on in 2019 to do her MA in Human Services and Counseling with a focus on life coaching from Liberty University. Sheryl began working with TCKs in 1988 at the International Christian Academy in Côte d'Ivoire. A civil war forced her to evacuate in 2002. She worked some at her home office for a season, and then in 2018 she joined International, where she serves in a variety of capacities. And she says her favorite moments are always when she works directly with TCKs. I'm looking forward to our time with them.
We have the great opportunity to meet Bret and Sheryl today, and they're with International. Bret and Sheryl, take a minute, introduce yourselves to us and a little bit of your role with Interaction.
Sheryl, let the ladies go first.
Thank you, sir. I grew up in New York, and I am not a TCK or an MK. I wanted to be, but my parents just would not cooperate. So I grew up and I went to college, and I headed overseas to teach for a year at International Christian Academy in Côte d'Ivoire. And a year turned into 3, and I decided that wasn't a good way to keep making decisions about my life. Went back to the States. I was so homesick for Africa. I called my sending agency and said, I want to go back. So started that process of raising more support and getting back. And so I was there for a little more than 10 years altogether until 2002 when we had a military evacuation. Both sides were using us as a buffer. So it made it harder to hit the other side.
Yeah.
From there, I went to my sending agency's home office and was the TCK Care and Education Specialist until 2018. And then I joined Interaction, and here I am. I do a lot of our social media. Um, I help with fundraising and work with kids whenever I can get a chance. Like we have a program called TCK Connect, and then of course our Transit Lounge in the summer. And then I do whatever else Bret needs me to do.
Right.
Sounds great.
And if you believe that, I got a bridge to sell you. So I'm Bret Taylor. I'm the executive director of Interaction International. I've had the privilege of working with missionary kids and third culture kids for about 25 years now. Been an incredible journey, not one I expected. Headed overseas after college to do church planting work among the Maasai, but immediately found myself lured into the lives of the missionary kids on my team there, hearing their stories and struggles and nothing like anything I'd ever heard of before. I got introduced to David Pollock's material there in Kenya, and suddenly there was words to explain what these MKs I was talking to were going through. So from there, I was hooked. Worked at West Nairobi School as a chaplain and a volleyball coach and the drama teacher and all the other things, plus doing transition seminars there for them. Came back to the States where I had the opportunity to work at JAARS in North Carolina for about almost 15 years as the Director of Youth and Family Ministries, running programs for out of there and across the world. And then in 2018, same time, Sheryl and I connected at Interaction, and been just going crazy there ever since.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for sharing a little bit of your backstory there. So can you guys share a little bit about kind of the story of Interaction as a ministry and its purpose and history?
Sure.
Sure.
You want to go, Sheryl? This is when you get two people.
You go and then I'll fill in the blanks.
There you go. Interaction was founded in 1976 by David Pollock, who many would consider as kind of the father of the TCK movement. And he came back from Kenya after seeing what was happening with the missionary kids and third culture kids there, and just launched an initiative to help organizations and people globally to become more aware of third culture kids. So out of that came the ITCK, sorry, that's the wrong one. The ICMKs, I got all my conferences mixed up here. The ICMKs were launched out of that, which really helped bring global awareness to the issues. The transition seminars came out of that, and just to continue to grow, to help continue a movement of growth in supporting missionary kids and third culture kids.
Wow, great. Anything to fill in, Sheryl?
No, I think you did a good job.
Hey, star for me today.
So one of the programs that you maybe are most well known is the Transit Lounge program. So let's talk a little bit about that and talk about what it is that the Transit Lounge is, we say, the secret sauce, the thing that really makes it work and can overcome even some of the reluctant kids that show up at these seminars.
Well, if you're going right for the secret sauce, I'll tell you the secret. It's our MK staff. One of the things that our program is probably known for is the adult TCKs who come to staff our programs and run our small groups and just be there to like talk about their journey and to listen to the journeys of the kids in their small group or whoever else wants to tell them. They are definitely the secret sauce because we get the best adult MK staff, adult TCKs. Like, yeah, they're fantastic and they make things work.
They do. For those of you who are not familiar with what Transit Lounge is, sometimes it's called reentry program, sometimes it's called a transition seminar. We struggle with some of those terminologies over the last years, even though we've used that at Interaction. But reentry doesn't seem to quite fit because reentering implies you came from a place, and for many missionary kids, third culture kids, they just don't feel like they're coming back to a place. They're going away from the place that they love and having to enter in there. Um, Lately, transition has become a word that's laden with extra meaning sometimes in the LGBT community. And so telling your church that you're going to a transition seminar became a little confusing for some people. So we said, let's get rid of both those words and let's just call it transit lounge. So it's a camp, simply put, or a seminar for 5 to 7 days, depending on which program, where our MKs and TCKs come together and kind of the tagline we sometimes say is they process intellectually what they've known intuitively. They get words for things that are in their heart that have been hidden there. Their things are dug out during the program and examined and then reprocessed and repackaged. And it's just a fantastic experience. It's magical. I've had kids who've come and said, my grandparents took us to Disney World or Disneyland and stuff like that, and that was great. But Transit Lounge, wow, this was way better than even Disneyland. So I was kind of happy about that.
Yeah.
Great. That's high praise. That's great.
Yes. It's not unusual, though, for us to have students who literally say, I do not want to be here. I did not want to come. My parents forced me to be here, and they're telling us all that. You can see it on their faces. Arms are crossed, scowls on their face, head buried in their phone, anything to avoid being there. This is a waste of time. I got a job, this, that. There's 1,000 excuses. And with almost 100% exception rate, they at the end of the like, oh my goodness, I am so glad I came. I didn't realize how much I needed this. This was so worth it. I'm glad my parents, I need to go and apologize for my parents to be being so terrible for them. It's fun to watch that transition, and it sometimes it only takes about usually 12 hours for most of them to go from being grumpy pantses to just can't imagine wanting to be anywhere else. It's just truly a magical place to be.
I can attest. I went to a back then we did call it transition seminar, but it was 25 years ago, and I still have fond memories of that time and how it gave me words for my experience as an MK growing up in Brazil, and I didn't have the words before that, and it was really really pivotal in my own ability to cope with living in this world that I was not re-entering to. I was entering really essentially for the first time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what is it? Some of the topics that you guys cover with these kids and help them process?
We talk about identity and who third culture kids are and how MKs, because most of kids who come are MKs, not all, but most, how they fit into that picture. And we go over some of the common misconceptions. And then Bret Taylor of Interaction International has the Adaptable TCK Model, which I think explains identity better than any other thing I've ever seen. You should get to know him. Um, but it makes it so that every model is individual to the person who creates it, and it shows who they really are. And when you see kids like drawing their own model, you see light bulbs go off, and it's a beautiful thing. They make posters and they put them on there for extra credit, to impress Bret, because you have to impress Bret when you make your poster. So yeah, so identity is a big theme that we talk about.
Yeah.
Another one is just transition itself, how that works and what the process is. And a lot of times, like, the raft model that Dave Pollock
Yeah.
developed of reconciliation, affirmations, farewells, and thinking destination will say, how many of you know that? And like almost every hand goes up. And then Brett says to them, all right, how many of you like can tell me what it is? And then like half of them sit down. And then, it's lower and lower till how many of you actually did it? And usually there's one or two kids out of almost 50 standing.
Hmm.
So we help them like no, it's not just like you didn't just have to learn it for school, or it wasn't just something that your mother kept telling you. Like there is value in doing this and kind of talk them through that.
Hmm.
Brett, what else do we do?
Yeah, we cover a lot of practical things and theoretical things sometimes. Some of the practical things the kids really enjoy come from anything from how to do taxes, how to apply for jobs, and we do some elective sessions on that. One of the favorites they usually have is we have a local law enforcement officer come in full dress, and they get to ask them questions about what to expect and how much do I bribe you when I get pulled over for a police, for a speeding ticket, and just clarifying some confusions of what they've seen on TV about police officers shooting people and things that they're confused about versus their expectations from living overseas. We talk about hard things though too. One of the sessions we cover is 4 hard things, and we unpack 4 kind of categories of topics that we see many MKs and TCK struggle with, and we get into some really hard, deep stuff. But the purpose of that is to help then identify, and then once it's identified, then you can begin to heal and grow from that. So we squeeze as much as we can into a very short amount of time, it feels like. We do a lot of processing in small groups to help reinforce that. But at the end of the day, it's the relationships that are the most important piece that comes out of that. Back to that secret sauce, having great relationships with those who've gone a few years ahead of them, who can say, I made it, you can make it, give me a call when you're stuck, when you're hitting that crisis point, when you feel like you can't do it, when you feel like America's too weird to live in. Give me a call, text me, we'll talk, and I'll talk you off the ledge again, if you will. So it's great. We have a great team that works every year, and it's always fun to see what the students take away from and learn. Another one they love is how to make friends with Americans.
Oh, fun. Okay.
That's one of their favorite sessions. They're like,
Good
I
to
don't know how
know.
to do it. How do you make friends with these Americans? They're supposed to be my passport country, but I don't even know how to make friends with them. So we talk through very practical things like that too.
Yeah.
Well, and things like how do you answer the question, where are you from?
Where are you from? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember actually to this day, one of the phrases that was said at interaction was, I give you permission to grieve.
Mhm.
And just the amazing feeling that was for all of us in the room of being able to actually grieve the fact that we had left what was home to
Hmm.
be in this country that somehow was supposed to be home.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I know firsthand it's a very powerful experience.
Hmm.
So why do some people kind of overlook the need of this program
Yeah.
and kind of say, yeah, I'll be okay?
Or, I mean, you don't have to sell us, but I know, I'm guessing sometimes there's churches, supporting churches, or mission agencies, or just the MKs themselves that are really, you kind of have to sell them on this. Why do you think that is?
I
Don't I
think
don't think I know. I
You
mean,
know, yeah.
it's I mean, constantly people, I don't know if I really need to go. Kids don't want to go. Organizations going, oh, we asked them, but they kind of didn't care. They didn't want to go. And you look at the timing in their poor families' lives. These are missionaries. There's aren't people rolling in, money, and they just got money to burn. Like, oh yeah, send my kid to camp. These are families who've been living overseas, usually at the end of their term. Usually their support is about as low as it's going to be at that point. They've just paid for these international flights to come back. They're moving their life back. They got to figure out how to set up everything else. And then they got to go, oh, should I spend a couple extra $100 to send my kid to this program and he doesn't or she doesn't really want to go? It's just another headache. I got too much going on, it's and so there's enough excuses easily available to keep people from wanting to go. And yet, our friends at Barnabas actually did some research on this. They do a similar program with ours. We love it, highly recommend theirs as well. But they do an intake on stress levels, and they did a follow-up survey afterwards. And they said just in that time period of being able to process their story, doing all of those things, helping to understand expectations, reset expectations, their stress levels measurably on a psychological test dropped significantly.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, I can give you tons of reasons why people don't go, but at the end of the day, I say, you know what? spend a couple $100 and maybe your kids have a better chance at passing and continuing staying in college, or save a couple $100 and then they burn out in their first semester because they weren't prepared to transition well. We're not guaranteeing that they're going to pass, but it significantly helps those type of investments. So if you're looking at just purely as a financial issue, I can give you tons of financial reasons why in the long term it pays off. The
Mhm.
kids are have better adjustments and stuff, but yeah, there's no shortage of people who think they don't need it, or why does it need to be that longer? This and that. Kids are always saying, can we have another couple more days?" I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, if money grew
Yeah.
on trees.
We could- Yeah. Yeah. Are there churches that have caught the vision for this and they really have gotten behind their missionary families and put this as a priority for returning kids?
Yes, there is some missions organizations in particular that are have seen the value, seen what it's done for their students and their families, see the results when those kids come back, and just the stories they're telling and the processing. And we don't, we don't. I, I don't want to sell this as if they come in one week and they come out and they're fixed. No,
No, yeah. Yeah.
they come in and we process, and then we give them resources and tools, and we point them towards a place. And sometimes that's referring them to counseling for stuff, that big heavy stuff came up.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's now, hey, continue processing this part of your journey. So we have organizations who've seen this steady flow of kids who've come through, and they say this is valuable. And so they're not even just saying send your kids. They're actually now helping to scholarship their kids to be able to come to the program. So I love that, and more organizations are starting to say this is so important. We want to take that excuse out of the equation. I love it when some home churches really get excited about it, and they're always asking what can they do to help. And some of the home churches, I tell the missionaries, ask your home church, hey, we don't have money for this, but I think this would be really good for my kids. Would you be willing? And it's amazing how many churches have a couple extra $100 in that missions budget that's not designated for anything, that they'll be willing. Yeah, let me send it. That would be a huge blessing to our kids. Um, I think most people would say caring well for the kids is the best way to care for the family, especially during transition. So, so yes, there are an increasing number of people getting on board with it, but there is plenty of who still have not seen it, don't believe in it. They have a lot of excuses there.
Oh, okay. So let's talk a little bit about today, the what are 2025, 2024, 25 since COVID, everything. Just talk about the world that these kids, if they've been living outside of America for several years, what are they coming? I mean, we swim in this water. We don't know what even to say to kids. We're not as aware because it's not what we're doing every day. So, what are you telling them as they come back to the States?
I think one of the things that we have to keep in mind is how isolated so many of these kids are from other kids like them,
Mm,
right? They may have national friends, but their national friends don't reflect their lives the same way that a TCK peer does, an MK peer does. And I think the isolation that COVID brought for some families has continued. And when they come to Transit Lounge, it's like oh, they've jumped into the pool of their people. And um, there's immediate, I know you.
mm,
Like, I'll listen to your story, and so much of it is my story.
mm,
Um, and it's just beautiful to see friendships happen. One time long ago, we took kids bowling, and I went up to ask the bowling guy to fix the lane thing because it had popped up, the gutter protectors,
okay.
and I was afraid we were going to damage it all. And he was like, "So this is a senior class from where?" I'm like, "All over the world." And he was like, "Well, how long have they known each other?" I was like, 20 hours."
Yeah.
He was like, "But they know each other." I'm like, "Yeah, they do. They know each other." So I think that's part of the magic of Transit Lounge is they find people who get them, who they can learn how to navigate America
Mm.
together, and they know they're not alone. Um, yeah.
I would maybe add to that, um, in addition to what Cheryl said, globalization is a real thing. If you rewind MK's 20 years ago, the cultural gap between where they were living overseas to living back in the States was significant. But with the internet, with TikTok, with all these things at the fingertip on their in their hand, even all the time, globalization is a real thing. Kids in Africa, national kids are listening to sometimes the same music we're listening here in the States, and vice versa. And so, one of the things that is surprising is with globalization, you feel like maybe the transition is not going to be as significant. And to a certain degree, that is actually true. uh, you're a little bit more up to date on what's happening, but sometimes that actually causes the bigger problem because when you think you're the same and you start to feel like you're the same and you walk into a situation, that's where that David Pollock and Ruth Van Rinken's hidden immigrant term
Yeah.
really hits hard because the more you feel like and look like you're the same, the harder those wait a second, we're different moments hit. One of the best examples of that that's been happening more recently to our TCKs is on immigration issues. They'll be at a church and there'll be other boys or girls their age in the youth group talking about illegal immigration. And maybe that church has a more of a negative view of immigration. And so everybody assumes looking around the room, everybody is on the same page politically and ideologically. And so they're having an open conversation. And it's hurtful to some of these kids who are coming from Latin America because now they're hearing disparaging things being spoken about people they care about very much. But nobody realizes it because they don't look like a Hispanic kid standing in their midst. And so they don't realize the heart underneath that. So globalization has been beautiful in some ways in helping the cultural stress to be less significant. But on the flip side, the hurt of being a hidden immigrant is sometimes more powerful because it zings you harder because you feel like you can slide right in easily, but uh, there's differences still.
Yeah. Hidden immigrant was actually one of the phrases I jotted down because I think that it has such a, I mean, so basically just someone that looks like they belong, but they don't have the cultural
Outwardly, they have all the other.
outwardly they look like they belong in that group. This young lady I'm sitting next to looks like she belongs in America, grew up in Brazil, showed up in America, and it wasn't where she
Yeah, I
had.
had someone say to me who actually understood some of my experiences. Like, you look as American as apple pie, but I know you're not. I'm like, thank you for saying that
Yeah.
because, and it was huge. I remember this 25 years later because she saw and she understood that even though I looked
Yeah.
American, and in many ways I am,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah.
that third culture kid, you know.
But it's
Yeah.
kind of a veneer over some Swiss cheese, as it were. It's like there's a lot of holes and gaps there. So anyway,
Yeah.
cultural understanding, and it used to be like pre-internet days and stuff, TV shows and
Mm,
music and movies and things that were
Yeah.
part of an American experience. And someone steps back into America from having lived overseas,
that's right.
they don't have all that.
But what I'm hearing him say is some of these things are now the gap of those kind of
Right.
Oh,
cultural
Yeah.
things is being bridged, but the values
yeah.
still very different because
Right.
the core values of cultures aren't shifting
Exactly.
necessarily despite the
Let
sharing.
me put, yeah, let me put it this way. I was in Mexico doing a program down there with a school, and I got to see a movie that didn't come out in the US for 3 more days. I saw it before it was released globally
Yeah.
in Mexico because they just went ahead and played it early. And I
Yeah.
walked out and bought the DVD that
Yeah.
was pirated. Oops,
Right.
sorry. I
Yeah. Whoops.
might get
Yeah.
myself. So, I mean, they're having stuff is hitting globally at the same time on a lot of different levels, but still that hidden immigrant thing is underneath that, outside of that veneer, outside look the same, but inside, you think differently, you speak differently, your heart speaks a different language, your ears are going to perk up, for example, when you hear Portuguese spoken, and your head's going to whip around, and you're going to, all of a sudden, words that you haven't spoken in years are going to start flying out of your mouth in a way that you didn't know you could still do, because that's still buried and part of who you are as a TCK, that Brazilian culture, but also that third culture of multilingualism and global perspective. You're seeing the world in three dimensions. And so Transit Lounge is all about that, helping to pull and celebrate and process that life experience.
We had a supporting church out in Eastern Oregon in a very, very, very small town. But this school decided to survive. They would take boarding students, and they were international students, but they didn't know they were going to go to one of the smallest towns in America. Anyway, there was a young lady from Slovakia that showed up there, and we had been living in Slovakia for a couple of years by that point, and we came by and we got to meet her, and she was just so grateful to be able to talk to us, and in our, even in our broken, poor
Yes.
Slovak. But there was
Yes.
some things that she was trying to communicate with people that she just couldn't make herself clear because no
Hmm.
one understood. But it was like, oh yeah. Anyway, even just in a little bit, but just yeah,
Hmm.
connecting with people, shared experiences.
Yeah.
It makes all the difference.
So we touched on some of the needs and challenges like identity and grief and loss and just the experience of transitioning. What do you think some of I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. What helps them succeed in these kinds of transitions? I mean, there are a lot of hard things, but
Hmm.
what's the good, the flip side of that?
Well, I think of what is good transition? I don't think good and easy are equivalent words in this scenario. One of my favorite stories to tell is about a girl named Michaela Moxness who grew up in Indonesia, and she came back to live in the States for a year, and she didn't want to. I mean, she did. She knew God had called her family to live in the States for this time period, but she loved her friends in Indonesia. She lived very local, very barefoot and stuff. And so she was constantly in the States. Michaela, put on your shoes when you go to school. Michaela, you don't do that. And she was in high school, but she had felt called by the Lord, like to really be there, to put down roots, we say, and be in that context. And so she did her best, and she grieved a lot at the front end of her time, but then she committed to really being an investment, and she went to a public school, and she did happen to have it was a public school where a lot of the other missionary kids went, so she had a little bit of her people, her little tribe there of sorts, who spoke her language of TCK. But she invested deeply, and she connected. She really blessed a lot of people in that school, and she was only there for one year. And I mean, just the school, the teachers, everybody knew Michaela. She brought so much light into that school. And by the time she was getting ready to head back to Indonesia, she told me, she's like, I was looking forward so much to going, and now I'm not sure I want to go back,
Mm. Mm.
because she transitioned well, and that she committed to fully being where God had put her in the time. We use the illustration of transplanting a plant from a small pot to a bigger plant. And really what you should do, a good gardener is going to actually break those roots to encourage new growth into the new soil. And so she got transplanted, her roots got broken, it was hard. She sat down into the bigger pot that God had put her in, and then she grew and she flourished and recovered and grew even more. And then it was time for her to be pulled up again. And so again, she had to go through that. I don't want to leave, but I know God's called me to go back to Indonesia. And her roots were torn and broken and frail again. And she adapted, and she headed back to Indonesia. And I mean, just beautiful story of someone doing transition well. But I need to explain, though, it was not easy. It was not pain free. But it was good because she committed to being where she was, where God had put her for that time, and saw purpose in that, and saw to suck the life out of her opportunities there. So I don't know, Cheryl,
I
you want
think
to add to
some
that?
of I think some of what makes good transition is just knowing like the basic patterns of transition so that when you're like, well, my life is chaos, you're like, oh yeah, it's supposed to be this way right now. Like I don't have to like it, but it's supposed to be this way. And I can take a deep breath knowing that I'm not out of order. I'm not really out of whack. I I'm right where I'm supposed to be. I'm right on schedule, which for me doesn't happen often, but um I'm right on schedule and it will get better. Right? There is a light at the end of the tunnel. That's a happy light, not a train coming at you.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I think just knowing what to expect in those stages and how to process that and to have people to process it with. I think the small groups give you those people to process with. And one of my favorite things from this last summer came after the summer when school started.
Mhm.
And I sent my small group a text. I was like, just take a picture of yourself wherever you are, like, within reason. But um, give me a picture. I want to see your faces. And one of them was two guys from my small group who didn't know each other before they got there. They're sitting together in chapel at their college. And I was just like, oh, that's so cool. They have someone to process with. They have someone who gets it, who they can talk about their experiences with the same language.
Mm.
So
Mm.
That's huge.
yeah, I think the people that you put around you make a big difference.
Sure, sure. So I recognize that there's a huge value in this transit lounge program, but not everybody necessarily can make it, or maybe it's not the right life stage or whatnot. What other resources do you have for TCKs? I know you have some other resources. Can you share with our audience?
I'll let Cheryl maybe share a few resources in a second. When I knew you were gonna ask this question, I'm like, that's like saying if you can't go to the Grand Canyon,
Right.
what book do you recommend on the Grand Canyon? If
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can't fly to outer space,
Yeah.
what do you recommend about how to experience outer space? So I'm gonna say you can't because it's not just the knowledge that's
No.
being transmitted and it's not the skills. It's the community. It's this beautiful, beautiful experience of being together that just really lasts decades beyond. I mean, not that this is what is supposed to happen, but we're starting to have a trend of people getting married who meet at transit lounge. So don't come for that, but you can't
Yeah.
get married if you're buying a book or something like that.
Yeah.
But
Right.
to the resources, if you have to settle for second best and you can't actually be there, Cheryl, what are some of your favorites?
Oh, I think one of my favorites is a devotional that Interaction put out. Brett, if you can grab it, that would be fabulous. Oh, nobody can see. I forgot. Um, it's
Yeah.
called Faith on the Move. And it's a 30-day devotional that walks you through transition and its different stages with uh, some people in the Bible who had some big transitions
Mm.
and were TCKs, cross-cultural kids, and how transition affects their lives. It also has a journal with coaching questions in it. I like to journal out my answers. It has questions every day, and I'm like, there's no room to write. So I wanted to journal, so we created one.
Mm.
So you didn't have to copy the questions over, and it gave room for some other things too. But that would be my number one resource. The Third Culture Kids, The Experience of Growing Up Among Worlds by Pollock and Van Rieken,
Yeah.
is a good resource. I think the first edition is quite readable and you can grasp it. Other people prefer other editions. So um, get the book however you can.
Yeah.
It's a great resource to have.
Okay.
And I think if you want a kid's book, Swirly by Sarah
Oh.
Saunders
Yeah.
is an excellent book for understanding and grabbing onto the idea of a third culture.
Yeah. We use the Swirly book with our kids' TCK debrief. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's
Excellent.
excellent.
Yeah. I think more people are familiar also with Lauren Wells' Grief Tower,
Towers,
and
right.
just processing that. I think that's helpful for that component of TCK life, but transition is not just simply about processing grief, though. So I wouldn't just hang it all on that. Matt Jones has a book. I lost the title off of, but it's another kind of workbook to process things like that. But another suggestion would be there's online groups that can be joined. So if they're still in high school and they haven't yet headed off to college, our TCK Connect group is just a weekly hangout, get together and online share a little bit about what's going on, laugh about things that are part of TCK life that's somewhat normalized when you live that life, but everybody else thinks you're weird for that, and get prayed for. Um, and so there's a lot of good resources out there. A lot of people are blogging about it. Another resource that I think is helpful for just exploring or helping you unpack parts of it. Sometimes when you hear somebody else's voice, it helps call out your voice a little bit. It's not a solely Christian, so I'll just put a little caveat on that. So don't expect everything on there to be Christian, but Culture Mix is a great website where our friend Hannah has kind of curated a bunch of poems, a bunch of videos, YouTube videos, people talking about being a TCK, movies about being a TCK. And so just you could spend hours looking at artwork and different ways people have artistically expressed their TCK identity. And I think that can really help get you processing and thinking about some of these really deep cultural parts of being a third culture kid.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think also we have a website called Among Worlds. It used
Yeah,
to be a published magazine, and
yeah.
that wasn't happy. It didn't make our purse strings happy.
Mm.
So it's a blog now. And great articles and poems that all reflect TCK-ness.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so
No, so
Yeah,
we will link to all these resources, and we want people to be able to find these things and use them. And even I think those who aren't TCKs who just want to better understand maybe their kid,
yeah.
their grandkid, their someone in the church.
Well,
I've had people say, there's a TCK coming to our church, and I don't know, how do I help them? What do I
yeah,
do? And these knowing about these kind of resources,
yeah.
people can
So,
educate themselves.
yeah, churches, grandparents, extended family, that's there's a whole nother world of just education that needs to happen there is how to receive back the families or how to receive back the young
yeah,
adults that are coming back, and not just to minimize their experiences or just
Yes.
not hear them, not listen to them.
Don't
I,
get me
I don't
started on that. We
yeah
do another
I
2 hours just on dealing with
yeah
grandparents and family, biological family, and
yeah
the good,
I
the bad, and the ugly of that experience.
yeah
Yeah.
I
So
don't
what
even
would
know
you
anyway.
recommend? How could you encourage them to receive back well? Because they're doing it many times, but they don't necessarily know what they're doing. So,
You're talking about biological family?
Yeah,
or yeah,
church or church
start there.
family,
Churches.
anybody.
church family,
Sure.
biological
I think
family.
first of all, you gotta ask good questions and really listen for the answer, not just assume you know it, and not make your next question until your first question has been answered. Um, I think just being heard is so important and being asked, right? So most kids aren't going to tell you what's going on in their brain unless you ask about it and not just ask, like, how was school today? Good.
Yeah.
Good.
One of the sessions we do at Transit Lounge, a little mini session we do is called Stupid Questions. And we spend some time letting people share the stupid questions, quote unquote, stupid questions that they've been asked. Do you ride elephants to school? Do you wear clothes there? Do you celebrate Christmas? All these things that Americans, even parents, grandparents and stuff have asked our missionary kids. And so we process through that because they get pelted with these quote unquote stupid questions. And we had processed that a little bit. Okay, they're asking, there is some intelligence behind it. It was poorly worded.
Mm,
Give them
yeah.
some grace and do that. One of the best gifts for but staying connected with biological family, especially grandparents, is if they would make that effort to go and visit them in that country,
Yeah.
because without that firsthand witnessing of what that cultural cross-cultural experience is, it feels like the kids are lying when they're telling you stories about what it's like over there, and you
Yeah.
don't know how to ask the questions without having some of those hooks to hang it on from having that experience. So whether grandparents or aunts and uncles can get over there, those that make that effort, we find that the connection between the biological grandparents and the missionary kids stays stronger. I would encourage churches that are really genuinely care, go and visit. Don't be a burden though, please.
Yeah.
Don't be the vacationaries that go and like paint a fence for a week and then want to go tourist and things, but like go and learn about your families and spend time like hearing about what day-to-day life is, not just when they're hosting short-term teams. See what it looks like to do school, and then with that grid, you can now better ask those questions or better understand some of the struggles. Or, oh my goodness, you did that because that's what it's like over there. Okay, you need to know when you're here in America, we don't do that.
Yeah.
That's not normal here. And so you have those safe friends, we call them furlough friends, that can translate culture and language in a safe way for you, let you know when you've overstepped a cultural boundary in America and say, all right, back off, step back. But grandparents, man, I've had some kids process some hard stories from grandparents who are just like,
Mm.
"You're in America, you're American, be American now,"
Mm.
and
Yeah.
it's hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard, and it can really shut down a TCK and an MK when biological family
Yeah.
um, is just not getting who they are and not appreciating or
Mm.
valuing their experiences, and
Hmm.
very detrimental.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we obviously have hours of conversation left here, but I'm afraid that we can't get to it all today. So, as we kind of move towards wrapping this up, what kinds of things, if you see someone struggling, maybe what TCK who's kind of struggling in transition, there's maybe some resources you could point us to, or just other things that you would want us to know before we wrap this up.
I think if they're still in high school, junior high or high school, and they're struggling whether like the family has moved to the States or is
Mhm.
still living internationally, we have a weekly call that Brett was talking about, TCK Connect. And we have one Thursday nights at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time and Friday mornings 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. That's all we can handle right now. We if we add more, I'll let you know. But we have anywhere from 12 to 22 kids on a call, and
From
it's
around the
just a
world.
great around the world.
Mm.
Last Thursday night, it was Washington, D.C., Tennessee, China, Japan, um, Kazakhstan, and lots from Indonesia.
Mm.
Uh, just, oh, and Costa Rica too. Yeah. So everywhere but Europe, apparently. Um, it's too late at night for European kids. So, um, yeah, it's just so much fun. And we've seen friendships develop out of it. Like when you have to make a visa run, now whole families are going to visit other families,
Mm. Mhm.
because they're close enough to make a visa run, so they get to all hang out together for a couple days while that happens. Or they plan to make their visa runs at the same time to another country. And it's just exciting to see those friendships go from online to offline to continue in college and
Mm.
beyond.
Mhm.
Um, it's pretty special.
Mm.
Yeah, resources. They're helping TCKs in their transition and getting there. Just sitting there and being a friend and listening and withholding judgment and asking good questions and follow up and show genuine interest. I mean, that is one of the biggest gifts you can give a
Mm.
TCK, is just to hear their story and to be genuinely interested. At our Transit Lounge program, one of the, I keep saying one of their favorite things. Everything's their favorite thing, it seems like,
Yeah.
and it sounds like, but one of the
Brett
parts of,
doing the worm is their favorite thing.
we're not going to talk about that right now. But we we give every kid the opportunity to share their story, their whole story, the way they want to, and not hold back. They don't have to say all the right answers, just to be real and transparent, share about the hardships. Some of them, just frankly have experienced abuse and things like that, but finally to find that safe place where they can share and unpack those stories for the first time, and to be able to express that, to have people withhold judgment when they talk about the strange quote unquote things that they've been eating, or the strange things that they have grown accustomed to overseas, and just to go, wow, that's really neat, and then still genuinely just appreciate them. That is a gift that you cannot measure, just to genuinely listen to someone's story and take the time, the hours that it takes to just listen, ask, sit through and look at pictures and show genuine curiosity. Just one of the greatest gifts you could give a TCK, I genuinely believe. So,
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for all you guys are doing to continue to serve MKs and TCKs around the world. And I, being one who really was impacted by your ministry, I'm just so glad to see you guys still thriving. So thank you.
Thanks you for having us on.
Yes, thank you. Cara, give me a takeaway from our conversation with Bret and Sheryl.
Yes, I just am so encouraged that Interaction International is still doing their Transit Lounge program and is able to really help a lot of MKs like myself with the adjustment from another culture into North American culture. Mm-hmm. And even though I just really appreciate how they're saying, even though globalization has changed things, it's still at the core, it's still a real need for helping people adjust. And so I was really encouraged by what they're doing. Yeah.
I think what I heard in a lot of different ways was that when you have your third culture kids or your TCKs that are coming, someone that you know, a missionary family you know, or a student maybe you meet in a youth group or some kind of small group or something, and they grew up outside of America, is take the time to listen. Ask good questions, listen,
be present.
Just be present with them and just take the time to listen, take the time to ask questions, and just so that they know that you're very present with them, because a lot of times they don't have the opportunity to explain their story. They don't have the opportunity for someone just to listen and ask follow-up questions and so on. It's just a lot of the, hi, how are you? I'm fine. And it goes.
The surface level stuff doesn't meet the need that they're experiencing of feeling so alone in this new culture.
Right.
And what a gift it is to listen. I think all of us recognize that if someone really listens to us, we feel valued. And this is a really important way to help.
Yeah. And we can't downplay the fact anyone that's changing cultures, and we're not, you can just think about maybe a family that moved in next door that's moved from another country. They need someone to listen to them. They need someone to ask them questions. They need someone to walk through adjusting to life in a new place.
Yeah, it is. Listening to others is really a gift. Yeah. So thanks for joining us once again, and we hope you were able to learn and take a look at all the show notes, and we'll put all the resources there. And please like and subscribe and share with a friend.
Thank you for joining us for the Innkeepers podcast. Our mission at Sanctuary Inn is to equip, refresh, and restore God's global workers. We hope today's podcast was an encouragement to you, or maybe the podcast you heard today, you've been prompted to pass this along to someone you know that could benefit from today's conversation. Creating a podcast is a team effort. Cara and I prepare and do the interviews, and we're grateful for the time that our guests give us out of their busy lives to help us learn more about missionary care.
We want to thank Tim Downing for the music he wrote and performed for the Innkeepers podcast. Tim is a very talented musician, and you can find out more about Tim at downingkeys.com. Our podcast is edited by Javier Bolanos, and our website and show notes are prepared by Micah Githens, my amazing husband. You can visit the Sanctuary Inn website to see more of Micah's great work at sanctuaryinn.org.
Thank you for joining us on our journey to learn more about missionary care.